Hi, it's Coach MK. Oh, happy Easter, and congratulations to every parent who is stepping away from the new Trolls movie and has that wretched song. It's actually not a terrible song. It's an earworm at the end of the movie stuck in their head the way that I do, mainly because my children are singing it. I also hope that your day has been a little more successful than ours. We do not feel like we are #winning at life whatsoever because we introduced the Easter Bunny. We managed to get our act together this year at midnight last night and got Easter baskets ready for the children, who proceeded to wake up at 5 o'clock, devour them. We were all happy for about an hour, and then the rest of the day just went downhill. I had 3 normal kids, but I just had to have that fourth, and that fourth one meant she is normal. And I'm seeing what the terrible twos are like. If Violet had been first, she would have been last. Yay! God save the queen. That's what's going on. You'll probably hear some screaming coming from behind the door, but I'm not going down there. Though it's someone's on top of it, and it can be their problem for a while because Mom needs a break. But Mom's spending my break hanging out with y'all. Welcome to the weekly segment of Ask Away with Coach MK. I'm the founder of the Fitness Protection Program. And we got a few announcements before we start moving on, taking the questions from my clients who are in Runner Interrupted. It's a support program for runners who are unable to run at the moment for any reason, such as life, COVID, chemo, pregnancy, to name a few. Then I'll be taking questions from our Rebuild program. Rebuild is for runners who are trying to reestablish a running habit or ease back in. If ever before you have had some semblance of a fitness program, Rebuild is for you, because we're not going to treat you like a brand new person. We're not going to treat you like a newbie. That will be coming later in our Build program, and that's our first announcement. I'll be circling back to that in a minute. But Rebuild is for people who have had a fitness program at some point in the past and would like to reestablish it, but don't want to be treated like new kids. And finally, Maintain. I'll be taking questions from that group. Maintain is a running subscription program for people who have a modicum of fitness that they would like to maintain or build upon. Training plans and training programs in Maintain are free. So the first big announcement, Build, the program for brand new runners who would like to make running a habit, will be opening on May the 1st. Build will be coached by our sponsored athlete, Nakia Young, who has a lot of experience working with brand new runners. She's terrific at it. If you've heard her on her podcast, you've seen her on her live streams. Nakia is amazing to look at and glorious to listen to. She is absolutely, I can't say enough good things about her. I love having her on the team. And I would back everything she says everywhere she goes all the time. And I can't think of anyone better to lead the Build program. That'll be opening on May 1st. If you do not yet receive our newsletter, go ahead and get on, subscribe to our mailing list, and you can be the first to know when that comes out. Next thing is, wanted to show everyone these neat things that are in our online store. Whoops. That's not what I wanted to do. Our online store at fitnessprotection.com. If you haven't been, we have some t-shirts, and now we have some neck gaiters that are appropriate for social distancing. There are all kinds of times and reasons a person would use a neck gaiter. It just felt like the right time to go ahead and roll this particular product out. If you've listened to our other podcast or live stream that we had last week, the podcast that'll be coming out this week, some people aren't comfortable, don't feel safe in public wearing a mask. We get that too. If that's you, we suggest pairing this neck gaiter with one of our shirts that says, "This is what a runner looks like," in case it wasn't clear what you were doing and you need to have that additional layer written on your body somewhere. We got your front and we got your back, and it actually says it on the back of the shirt too. Fitness Protection Program has my back. We think the shirts are really neat. And the gaiters, you know what? There are lots of reasons to wear them. They're popular with trail runners if you're in a really dusty area, if you're in the height of summer, and frankly in spring with pollen. It's not about, please don't compare it to a mask. They're not the same. But really, the reason we're wearing masks is not to protect us, but the people around us. And you'd have to work real hard to get a lot of spit through that thing. So it fits the bill if you're going to be running around and would like to keep pollen out and the droplets in. Then might as well do it with our logo written all over your face and neck. Yay! And the final announcement I wanted to make before I dive right into answering questions. I didn't even have time to go grab the weekly wins, y'all. I just needed to hide in my bathroom for a while from all the screaming. I've been... Tricia Mitchell, I think, took the picture off my Instagram and shared it on her Facebook page. And I've been doing more and more and more of that lately because the screaming has just been out of control. Wow. But I apologize for not having the weekly wins handy. I will have those in the show notes when this is released as a podcast later in the week. But for now, Just 3 days at the fair is the big announcement. We are going. 3 days has been officially postponed until October, and it'll start on September the 28th and end on October the 4th. We will not be there that long. Fitness Protection, aka me, plans to be there from the 1st till the 4th. Same as before. If anything happens to that plan, we will let you know immediately. But as of now, that is on the plan, and we do intend to be there in May as well. This is going to be our yearly meetup. It's the most inclusive event I've ever seen. None of the reasons why we like it have changed. So there's no good reason not to go if we are able to later in the year. So right now we are tentatively poised on that. If you are part of the coaching program for 3 days, you probably already received communication from me. I say just you decide what you need to get out of this training cycle, but more than anything else. We're almost there. I mean, it's the second week of April. So at this point, if you've been keeping up with it, everything up until now, and you feel like kind of deflated, I would say make your own race. That we've been working with an insanity loop for a while now. You could easily run your entire race on that insanity loop and get your neighborhood involved. It could be fun. Tell them you're doing it for charity. Try to raise funds. Try to get people to come out and cheer for you. Let me tell you how much nonprofits are hurting right now. Any nonprofit you choose is going to be thrilled and happy to back you in fundraising and help get the word out, because nonprofits are hurting just that much right now, especially ones that are dealing with families and domestic violence. So I would start with that, with shelters, with day shelters, any shelters that take teenage boys, which is a really big deal. They're usually if you have older children, they're not allowed in shelters for reasons. And if you can find one that serves that population, do it. The Trevor Project is another really terrific one to support. Think about who'd be most disenfranchised right now. It'd be the people for whom home was not safe before all this started. The Trevor Project helps LGBTQ youth anywhere on that spectrum. And they are nationwide. They're in every city. If you're in Denver, they operate locally out of the center on Colfax. So that would be a terrific place to start if you wanted to reach for the people who could use the help the most. You could always help raise money for those funds to help people in this time of need. In turn, you can still run this race. It just might look a little different, but we'll help promote you and support you too, no matter whatever you want to do. We got your back, no matter where you run or how you run. And really, do you need it to be USATF certified in order for it to count and matter? Come on. I stand by it. I never have, and I still don't. This is the reason I don't talk about my PRs, because they didn't happen in a sanctioned place. So they'll be, and I'm proud of them. I got what I needed out of those races, and no one can take that away from me, and I'm not going to let them try, which is why I don't say the numbers out loud ever, and never will until I've done it, until I've achieved those numbers again on a certified course somewhere, so that all the haters can go, talk about me behind my back or to my face, and however they want to. At least by having that on paper, I can do this too. I would do that anyway, but it's easier to do that if you've got something to back it up. If you just don't care, people can always call you weak and keep doing what they're doing. I like to have a conversation ender when I enter those situations. So before we hop into all the questions, there was one question I received earlier in the week that I thought merited being part of this broadcast. Pardon me for 1 second while I bring it up. Of course, this is going to happen today. Here it is. Coach MK, thank you for being so open about your ADHD and how you work with it. My child received the diagnosis a few years ago, and we are struggling with distance learning at the moment. How would you explain the importance of a schedule to him? I'm failing. Okay, let me be very clear here that you are not going to like my answer. And so take a deep breath and brace yourself. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not taking sides because I don't understand what the argument is. But 9 times out of 10, when I give an answer that someone doesn't want to hear, it can get combative, and I'd rather it didn't. At least not with me. I'm just going to tell you how it works in my world, and you two can distill this information together. Broadly speaking, if you were to get on Twitter the way that I did last year, there's a really lit, luminous, and lustrous community of people with ADHD. And I can't tell you how cool it is to follow what I call Addie Twitter. So you have ADHDs, sometimes they refer to ourselves as Addies, as opposed to neuronormative folks who we call normies. It's not a slur, it's just shorthand version. So the importance of a schedule, I would argue a schedule isn't important, and that you might be looking at this incorrectly. I would frame the conversation differently. At the beginning of each day, what do you need to get? So if I haven't lost you completely, take a deep breath, hit pause for a second, curse at me. Okay. Normies tend to rely on schedules because they make you feel safe. They give you a sense of control. They are vague reminders of what needs to be done, or motivators to do something, because normies don't like to be sitting idle. It's a whole thing having to be taught mindfulness and how to relax. It's doesn't happen in our world in the same way. For us, the stakes are a little higher and the question's a little bit different. When it comes to a schedule, schedules, I hate them. Ask anyone who works with or for me. I hate them. It's not an effective way for me to plan my day or get things done. I plan my day in gigantic chunks, and those chunks rotate throughout the week. Instead of having like a little task every day, or breaking a big task down into the little parts, which I don't understand either. I get that that works for some people with ADHD. That's not always feeding into a cycle of positive reinforcement. What I rely on are routines. And I've been really open about these as well. For years, decades, I ran first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. Why? Because my morning routine was geared around making sure that I took my medication one time, as opposed to, did I take my medication and accidentally taking it twice? Because I'm on Adderall. It's a powerful stimulant, and I'm on a high dosage. So taking it twice would be a disaster, and we need to avoid it. And the way that we do that is by making a morning routine that is easy to remember, so instinctual that it's like flushing the toilet. It's almost a reflex. You don't have to think about it. It just gets done. I'll tell you how we get to that point in a minute, but I have a few rituals throughout the day or a few routines rather around a day during my day that are circled around something that I absolutely must do, or where the stakes are pretty high and I can't afford to mess that up. And for years, my morning routine was wake up, go to the bathroom, take my medicine. Like that. And things changed this past year where I was getting up and all of a sudden I had to mom. I didn't have morning help anymore. So we just weren't able to find anyone that wanted to come to my house at 6 a.m. And we'd been lucky at being able to do that for the previous 5 years. But I had to develop a new routine, and that's where my new routine now is where I'm struggling, because get out of bed, go to the bathroom, take my medicine. That wasn't my routine. It was get out of bed, go straight for the door, get your run done, come back as soon as the run is done, take my medicine, and then sit on the foam roller. And that was the routine. And changing that routine, it's not been easy. It's not been great. But that's how important the routine is. I have one in the morning and I have one at night that's part of my unwinding ritual that helps me turn my brain off and go to sleep. So the thing about routines is that, unlike schedules, they're not flexible. There's no changing them. You don't change the steps in them. This is what I do. You are probably never going to be able to explain the importance of that routine to a normie, because their life doesn't work that way. The stakes aren't that high. If something in their life was that important, they too would have a routine to make sure it got done in that way, or that it wasn't overlooked, or even worse, that it didn't happen twice. But it's so rare that if it's not something you as a parent are experiencing, then it's really going to be hard to articulate it to your child. So if what you're trying to do is force a schedule on your child and the schedule isn't working, what's going through their mind is what would be going through mine. And it's going to be calling you a hypocrite. All the times you made a schedule or a deadline and then just change the deadline or just change the schedule. Schedules are flexible. They're really flexible. People cancel meetings all the time. People schedule everything back to back. It's very rare that has to happen to me. Not to say it doesn't happen, but because I schedule things in large blocks, I almost never schedule things so close that I'm running late and need to do it next week. I'm almost never in a position where if one little thing goes off in the morning, then it's throwing off my whole day and now I'm behind. I can't afford to do that. It's way too stressful, because another component of ADHD, and one that we don't talk about a lot, is anxiety. It's a lot of anxiety about getting things done and how the world perceives us. Because until you diverge from the norm and have to spend your life either hiding it and bending what you do to accommodate all the people around you, do you truly understand how much work it is to be non-normative in this world? And I'm, again, cisgendered, heterosexual, and white, so I'm just neurodivergent. Imagine how much harder it is for others. So I tell you all that to tell you this. At the beginning of each day, you got to ask yourself, what do I need to get? You need to remind your kid that this, and you need to remember this yourself, that in this closed environment, which you're experiencing now, whether we're talking about a school as a closed environment, a home as a closed environment, wherever that gossip circle would travel, 1% of your actions can become 99% of the narrative about you. And you can't live your life catering to that narrative, but you need to be aware of it, and in a way that you're prepared for what comes to manage that anxiety. So let me tell you, there is nothing you can do to get the approval of some buttheads who are going to be spreading stories or creating this narrative around your kid. And the last thing that in this world that you want is for your child to come home each day thinking that you have the same opinion of your kid that those bullies do. And that you look at your child and think that they're just as much of a loser as others do because he doesn't do things in the same way that you want him to. So that I would remember, what do I need to get out of this conversation? What does this schedule need to achieve? There are things we have to do, whether we like it or not. Most of us, if we're not interested in it, put it off to the last minute, bang it out the night before, putting as little energy into it as possible. We procrastinate. Everybody procrastinates on things that don't inspire them. So at the end of all this, you need to remember that this is a really cool opportunity. You are outside of the school setting. You can turn this into whatever your kid needs it to be. So find some way to sit together and reconcile what needs to be done with routines and schedules. So maybe your idea of a schedule isn't going to work for your kid. I can tell you most people's ideas of a schedule cannot, and will not ever work for me. But if you sit down with me and we were to hash it out, you might not like what I say. This is how it's going to happen on my end. But I'm self-aware enough to know that this is how it needs to happen on my end. And I can tell you where compromise is possible and where it doesn't need to happen, because then the whole tower will topple. And I tell you, normies usually don't have that level of self-awareness because they don't have to think about their failure points and their weak spots that much. They pretend they don't exist. So if your kid is acknowledging those failure points and trying to discuss them with you, don't dismiss it out of hand. Don't shut that conversation down. Listen, lean in, and take that moment, because if your kid can't talk to you, then you can't advocate for them, and you're going to be causing more harm than good. So again, I'm really sorry. That's probably not what you wanted to hear, because I don't think schedules are important. I think finding a way to achieve what needs to be achieved is important, and I don't think a schedule will do that for everyone. So that's how I feel about that. And there are all kinds of people are like shaking their heads right now at me. So no, my schedule's not flexible. Yeah, it is, and you move it all the time, and your kid sees it, and that's okay. But you can't tell the kid that your kid that they have to do this one thing in this one rigid fashion, a fashion to which you never adhere, with deadlines that move. What your kid needs to understand is priorities. What needs to be done by when. They need to understand when a deadline is fungible and when it isn't, and how to structure and organize their time. That can happen with a non-normative type of schedule. And I'm happy to, if anybody wants, if you want more information about what my schedules look like and how those work, I'm more than happy to take some screenshots and share them with you. I block out time for like marketing. So morning routine, morning activity, lunch, afternoon activity, afternoon ritual, evening activity, evening ritual. That is it. That is my day every single day. And what goes in those blocks depends on what deadlines I have that week. So if you can extend that same sort of flexibility to your kid, chances are pretty good they know what to do and how to do it. And it's going to make you really uncomfortable. But if you can live with that discomfort, they can live with some of the consequences too. It's a really hard thing to learn to manage. But this is the final note. I really hope your kid has a therapist. Therapy is terrific. And therapy is going to be the person who can understand and advocate for your child in a way that you never can. And that's okay too. It's not a failure on your part. But if you refuse to take your kid to one, then that is a failure on your part. If you have access, that is. So we're all about winning here. And I'm pretty sure that if you're asking these types of questions and you're in such a public forum and asking me of all people, then that's a pretty good sign that you're doing this job right and you are in fact winning at life. Okay. Since I never tell anyone what they want to hear. I tell them, I'm like, why are you asking me? You probably got people in your life that are going to tell you what you want to hear. Why'd you come to me? Surely for something different. I've never told anybody. So, that tiger go crazy or did that tiger go tiger? Anyway, moving on from there to weekly wins. Let's take that banner down and put that one back up. Here we go. So for Runner Interrupted, my oncologist finally said it was time to start slowly reintroducing running 6 weeks post Whipple. Wow. Yeah, Whipple. Everything I know about Whipples, I learned on Grey's Anatomy. But I do know what that is. Thank you, Grey's Anatomy. And I've had 3 very successful 30-30 run walks. They said it should make this next round of chemo easier to tolerate. So I am all over it. What do I do? Congratulations, number 1, by the way. That's fantastic. Yes, any sort of movement that doesn't stress your body out will facilitate healing, and psychologically it's really important too. As people are discovering right now, the psychology of movement, you're seeing people are going outside, they're taking up running, they're taking up biking, they're dusting off their rollerblades and getting out on the street, things that they've never done before just to get out of the house. The freedom to move can be super psychologically beneficial, especially if you've been in one place deprived of what you wanted to do, deprived of movement, if you've been in pain or something life-bending, like recovering from cancer, the type of cancer that would necessitate a Whipple procedure. So congratulations for all of that. Those are so, I can't believe you train with me. I love you, and I love that you're here. So that's a huge win. I'd say if they gave you some guidelines, this is where the 140 comes in. I didn't make it up. I'm not that smart. This comes from doctors. When we talk about the type of inflammation that's required to facilitate healing, or the type of inflammation that inhibits healing, that tends to happen above 140. So when we lift heavy weights and we break muscle, that causes some inflammation, but that's the muscle tearing and repairing. That's good. We want that, but it still hurts and it can be really sore. When you have surgery and your body's coming back together, that same type of inflammation is the dilation of blood vessels, the swelling of the tissues. That is not what you want, because that's going to slow the healing down. So broadly and generally speaking, you'll be told to get out and move, moderate, very, very light efforts, walking, super light jogging, nothing straining or nothing strenuous. And if you are lucky, then the doctor will throw out the 140 line, because anything below that is unlikely to cause the type of inflammation that would undo the healing from your surgery. I had a minor gum procedure done 4 years ago. And I remember having my periodontist beating that in my head, like, do not go for a run. Do not go for it. I don't even jog. Don't even running more slowly than you want to go is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I'm like, oh, funny. I've heard that before. Thank you. He's like, don't even try. Just don't even walk. Just stay in bed and watch TV. It's going to be great. And, true to form, I did that, but I tell you that to say this, there's a reason that exists. It is something to think of. Take it seriously. Let's keep that healing going. The Whipple's a really big deal. Movement will help it. but this is not the time for harder efforts, and it seems like you know that. There's a season for everything, and right now we're in your season of healing from cancer and the Whipple. Let's focus on that and get enough movement that you feel boosted and you feel excited and you feel proud of yourself and proud of your progress and excited to move again without going so hard that you're doing yourself more harm than good. But yay, I'm thrilled for you. Second one. Oh, and so as far as what to do, you've done some 30-30 walks. You can just follow lane 1 of rebuild and you should be all right. Because that's a slightly higher heart rate, but it's not way higher. And I'm not worried about you overdoing it if you follow the lane 1 of rebuild. Next one. My win for the week is clean sheets on the bed and sheet masks every other night. Oh, that's nice. That is a win right there. Runner interrupted. Whoa. I did a mask this morning and that was very exciting. But basically, I was hiding with my earphones on in the bathtub while I did it, just because I didn't want to hear the screaming anymore. Oh my gosh. Did you hear that? Maybe not, because this is not that good. I'm using the crappy microphone. Yep, that's her. I was hiding from that some of the morning. I'm going to keep hiding from it now. Yay! But sheet masks, fantastic. It's hard to relax. It's hard to relax, period. If you found a way to do that and love yourself and take care for yourself a little bit, who cares what that looks like? Yay, you. Rebuild. Hi, MK. I'm slowly getting back at it. Right now, I cannot handle any failure. So I'm aiming at just getting out the door more days than not. I'd like to say I'm in lane 1 of rebuild, but the reality is I'm not yet there. Aside from refocusing, I'm just rebuilding my habit. What is your recommendation for the most important thing for me to do in regards to running? As always, I'm grateful to be coached and loved. Honestly, the most important thing for you to do is reach out to the community once in a while and just say hi. Reach out to me the way you did just then. Keep checking in and keep hanging on to this tether, because when you're rebuilding a habit, it's hard to do. When you are rebuilding a habit in the context of moving on with your life, it's important that you actually make that part of the narrative. There's an article that I read in The Atlantic this morning. My friend Carol Markowitz in New York, her friend Mary Catherine Ham lost her husband 4 years ago. Suddenly he was doing a cycling, one of the cycling things to raise money. I was hit by a car. It was very, very unexpected, and it was devastating. So she wrote about parenting in a time of crisis that I just thought was beautiful. And it should be required reading for everyone. Every word that she said was so terrific. So I'm not saying I agree with everything this woman says. I'm saying this one article is really amazing. So right now, I would think of yourself as parenting in a time of crisis. And part of what Mary Catherine Ham says in this article is that it is really important to have a narrative that even if you're only living it a few minutes a day, that becomes your narrative. We are a happy family. There was a lot of unhappy moments, but they were together, happy however they could be. So your narrative is going to be not I'm still a runner, because you never stopped. It is I am a runner. It's that continuity. It's the same continuity that I demanded when I found myself pregnant and unemployed on my way back from my wedding, trying to figure out what the next steps were going to be for us, while my husband was being told that we were moving to Houston, which was a lot in a short period of time. But effectively, my narrative went from, MK Fleming here to stay-at-home mom, which was not like a binary, like, oh, I think I'll just go home now sort of thing. And I hate the way people reference it, especially people who know me well, because it wasn't like a one-time thing. It just sort of happened, but I owned that narrative and tried to make the best of it every single day and tried to until I got to where I am now, which is really a good place. Through all of that, I made it really clear to my husband, the only way this is going to work is if I'm still a runner. So we got to find bandwidth for me to be able to do that, to train, and to show up to races. I have to keep this, or I've lost every part of myself that I cared about before, and you don't want that. I don't want that. You can't afford that, and this family doesn't need that either. So I tell you that to tell you this. The most important thing you do right now is whatever it takes to keep that narrative alive and going in your mind, so that the moment you start to doubt it, it'll all start to fall apart. I'm a runner. I am here. This is my self-care. I am doing this for me. It's not negotiable. It's not something that can be pulled away. And it doesn't matter if you do it every day or not. It doesn't matter. It's not about what percentage of the plan you're compliant with. It's about what percentage of your brain still believes that this is going to happen, that this is who you are, and this is what you're going to continue to do. Now, I know that's probably, again, not not what the answer that you wanted. But when we're building a habit, we've got to believe that this thing that we're doing is possible. If you read the book Atomic Habits, they touch on this as well. If you don't believe that the outcome or the change that you're trying to achieve is possible, then you're putting it really far out of reach. So let's not do that. Focus on who you are and what you're doing without beating yourself up for the days that you don't do it. Continue to make the time and the space for yourself and accept grace. Everybody talks about giving grace. I'm like, ooh, that like my ex-evangelical Southern Christian heart breaks whenever I hear that, because I'm like, that's dangerous. That's not how grace works. Don't say that. That's blasphemy. But grace is not anyone's to give. It just is. It's there, and you've got to be willing to accept it and to take it. And that's how I would think about this right now, rather than looking at ways to be harder on yourself to try to force a better outcome. Kind of like that mom and her kid earlier asking me about a schedule. A schedule's hard, fast, and inflexible. That's not helping anybody. You need to be able to just sort of grab the grace that's there for you, because there's plenty there for the taking, just like the love and the support of this community. It's here. You don't need to engage with it. It's not about how frequently you use it, but that you know it's there and that you reach out for it from time to time to remember that this too is yours. Okay. And you could, even if doing it this way, the most introverted way possible without having to have direct contact, that's cool. That's enough. That's the tether. That's what you're here for. It's not about you showing up. It's about me showing up for you. Okay, coach, I am jumping back in for at least the next few days. Yay. I have not been able to keep up with the daily strength and have been doing more running than strength. I know this isn't good. Whatever. And I need to do more strength. So do I. Whatever. My question is, can I do 2 days of strength at once to catch up a bit? Or is it better to just follow along and do 2 or 3 reps of the same strength sets each day? Thanks for taking our questions. I appreciate the heck out of you. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. I tell you, we've only lost, in this time of crisis, we've only lost 6 subscribers, which is amazing. It's really, I mean, it's not enough to make a material impact on our bottom line. And I've offered to comp. If you have been furloughed or laid off, or if your future is questionable, let us know. We are happy to comp you, because we are at the moment in a much more stable position than we deserve. I'm grateful for it. And that just gives me the bandwidth and the ability to help more people. So I tell you, that's that. I appreciate all of each and every one of you as well, and everyone that has kept this company going and has made what we're doing possible. None of this would be possible without you guys. So knowing that you're appreciated as well, I would say it kind of doesn't matter. At this point, we're not in a specific training cycle. What we need to be cognizant of is not overdoing it. And I say that as the person who needed a whole lot of self-care last week, because it's been a week. And I ran 51 miles without meaning to, without thinking about it, just like, oh, I got time to run, shoes, bye, running away and going as far away as I possibly could. I had been taking new routes that I've never taken. Like, I'm just going to keep going down Alameda. I've never done that before. Oh, I can stay on Alameda all the way to Holly. Who knew? I wonder how far south this goes. Oh, I don't like this neighborhood. I'm going to take a right back to these. I just kept going. I ran 11 miles. I ran 12 miles. I've had really great runs this week that added up to 51 miles. And it caught up to me yesterday. I needed yesterday off. Today, I took a 3-mile Pokemon collecting walk with my kid, who has never walked 3 miles before. So anyone who thinks that game is not serious, that is a serious freaking game. And I love that game. I can't believe it gets my son to want to move. And he's like, Mom, can we go farther? Can we go longer? Can we go this way? We get more points and more Pokeballs if we hit new stops. So we got to go somewhere new. This is not the way my child thinks, or the sort of thing that they said. It's magic stuff. But I digress. I tell you that to underscore that this is the time to do whatever it is you want to do, to take the 3-mile Pokeball walk, to take the extra long run just because you need it. And then take the 2 or 3 days off afterwards when you realize that, hey, you know what? I overdid it. My muscles are really sore, and I'm going to eat all the potato chips. Potato chips are great. I'm going to eat all the ice cream. Going to have it for breakfast. And you know what? I'm going to eat all the kids' Easter candy because they are being terrible, and those demons don't deserve it. That's fine too. I'm not going to judge you at all. What I will tell you is strength is good when you can do it. If you can't, join us for Outdorphins on Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. That's because I hate strength too, and I do it when I got a group to do it with me, where I've got Lindsay Warren of College Strength actually there yelling at me. And so I've had to create this environment so I can make sure that I'm walking the walk there as well, because most of the stuff that I do around the house is the proprioceptive work, standing on one leg at a time, being on the Bosu ball, L stands while brushing my teeth, that sort of thing, hanging out on the Slack block while I do my evening face routine. So yeah, there are lots of little ways that I bake tiny pieces of strength into my day, but not a full session. So whatever is going to work for you, whatever you feel like doing day to day, I say do that and don't worry about it. The best kind of strength is the strength that you do. And if you're trying to do something that's better than nothing, if you don't know what to do, grab a resistance loop. 1 minute slides to the left, 1 minute slides to the right, 1 minute monster walks forward, 1 minute monster walks backward, and right there you've just nailed all of the muscles that you need to keep strong as a runner foundationally, and you're good to go. So if you don't know what to do, do that. But it sounds like you do know what to do. But yes, you can do 2 days of strength at once. But don't think of it as catching up. Think of it as, I have more? I can do more, and then choose to do more in an empowered way rather than treating it like a fraction. Well, if I do this now, it cancels out the need to do it tomorrow, which is the sort of thinking that doesn't end anywhere good. Ask me how I know. There we go. Finally, maintain 3 questions. Number 1. Actually, how many questions? Yes. Okay. Sorry. I would like to set more realistic heart rate zones for Garmin and Training Peaks, which have their own and very different zones than they have set for me. I found an intriguing calculation that uses resting heart rate as well as the max. They use 220 minus age to calculate your heart rate reserve, but this gave me an anaerobic zone that tops at 173. Knowing that my max heart rate is 182 from several EAT ages ago, as well as the more recent slow burn beta, is there a best way to use that peak heart rate to set more realistic zones? So what peak heart rate is intended to do in Training Peaks is to kind of show you how the clock is running on the glycogen in your body. So if you think about your peak pace and then your peak heart rate, at that point, from that point forward, you're running out of energy at an increasing rate. And so you can see how the slope changes drastically on the curve. I would use that to talk through race strategies. If it was a really hilly race, I would use that to think about possible outcomes for a race of a specific distance, because that stuff doesn't work very well beyond the 1 hour mark for non-elite runners. So the fitter, which is why they talk about fitness, like this hierarchy, the fitter you are, the more accurate the data will be. And if the less fit you are, it's not to say like fit or fat, but rather, the fitter the person, the more accurate the data and the predictions will be. Because all of these calculations were not performed on people like us. They were performed on human machines. So to that end, I wouldn't really worry too much about peak pace or critical pace or peak heart rate or threshold heart rate, any of the numbers in Training Peaks. The reason that the 140 rule stands is that we don't know where your max heart rate is. And that is a major flaw in the calculation of all these zones, because your heart's a muscle. If you rep it to failure, you die. And we would rather that didn't happen. So your max heart rate is not 182. That's sort of your peak heart rate. Like once you get it there, you don't have the power, the energy, or the wherewithal to push it any higher. That's really good to know when you're planning out a race strategy. If you look down and see 172 and it's mile 2 of the marathon, if it's mile 3 of a 5K, hold on. That's how we look at that number. That's not what we use to determine like zones of training specifically. But if I were you, I would just turn that off, because I don't look at those zones ever. All I look at is, what am I doing and what do I need to get out of this run? And you'll notice this has been an ongoing issue with my Polar, and I'm so mad at Polar right now for this, because this has never, ever, ever happened before. I laughed at people with Garmin's when this started becoming a thing, and I'm so mad that it's happening with my Polar now. It starts picking up cadence instead of heart rate whenever I exceed a 10-minute mile. And this is a known flaw in the hardware, and I'm pissed about it because it doesn't even work with the heart rate strap anymore. And I'm thinking of going back to my old cheap M400, because they never gave me this kind of trouble. But I tell you all that to tell you this, like, I don't need you in the anaerobic zone. What do you need to be in the anaerobic zone for? If you're wanting to do those kinds of workouts, that's cool. There's a reason I really don't assign them in a group setting, and I'm happy to discuss them just because the faster you're going, the harder your effort, the more impact is occurring to your joints, specifically your knees, your hips, and your ankles. And if you don't have the muscle strength to support the joints and perform those movements properly, you're going to be doing more harm than good. It's one of the reasons I don't assign hill repeats or track intervals, because again, yeah, they're good, but they're also bad if you don't have the specific type. If you can't pass the chair test, then you don't need to be doing hill repeats or track intervals. You just don't. They're going to do you more harm than good. So, and hill repeats and track intervals are the anaerobic power inducing work that we would do with a heart rate that high. So I tell you this, I just turn it off and not look at it. I don't like the zones in Training Peaks. I don't like the zones in Strava. I don't like the zones as they come out really through Stride. And I like training by power. I do it a lot because it has been a more reliable marker for me lately since my polar decided to start sucking. Now I look at power more than I ever have before to make sure that I'm not going too far over the max end of my easy effort spectrum, which is 183. Anything over 183 power wise, the system will calculate that was not an easy effort. So I'm not telling you to go by a stride, because here's the big drawback to the stride. Power is very, very sensitive calculation, and the main driver of that calculation is your weight. So I don't like thinking about my weight that much, and I don't want to be weighing that much and toning it for accuracy every morning. So I'm well aware that most of the numbers and the data that I work with are sort of like, and I'm okay with that. And it's not because I don't like math or respect math. Went to Wharton, y'all. You can call me stupid all you want. You can talk about how much, I hate numbers all you want. But the fact of the matter is, I know when to worry and when not to, and when stress helps and accuracy helps, and when it just gets in the way. And I would argue that I'm using all of these words to illustrate that those zones don't really mean anything. They're not helping you, and we don't use them. 140 is just sort of a gut check. And if you go out and you look down and you're like, it's 165 and I'm not hurting, and that's what I needed today, that was a good run, fine. But when that day comes and all that's caught up to you, like it did to me this past Friday, don't be afraid to take a couple days off. That matters much more than the zones you're using day in, day out. It's listening to your body day in, day out. Because every single day of those runs, I was right where my power meter said I needed to be. My heart rate looked like it was way high, but I'm positive it was picking up cadence. But God, I had some good runs and I felt so good and I was so proud. And there is no heart rate zone that can do that for you. It's just a reality check. When people would come and be like, it's totally easy. I go gross. You're slow down. That's all. So just remember what those, back to the base question. What do I need to get? You know what you need to get. You don't need those heart rate zones to tell you. Because you're not going to get more realistic zones. Just throw it away. Okay, next question. For reference, my Garmin zones are so high I really get out of zone 1 up to 152. With zone 5 of over 193. Okay, that's whack right there. The calculation that Training Peaks is using for you is incorrect. Training Peaks super low is zone 1 under 114 and zone 5 over 145. Not sure how either program chose all that set for me, but clearly neither is appropriate. No, you're right. Neither is appropriate. So the default in Training Peaks is a system that is used for triathletes, and it's going to be way more accurate than your Garmin. Most Garmins have this new little feature based on math that tries to predict your VO2 max. Now, this is where you can see I'm getting animated about it. VO2 max is one variable, and again, as someone who respects math, I'll tell you one variable, it does not tell you anything, and systems are easily gamed. So if it tries to tell you that your VO2 max is here and use that to predict outcomes based on absolutely nothing. So most everything all the calculations coming out of the Garmin are if I had to default to one, it would be Training Peaks every single day. I would just turn off those Garmin notifications. Turning to Training Peaks to make that more calibrated. You can do, they have fitness tests. Mine's built into my Polar, so every once in a while I do it first thing in the morning before I get out of bed, put on the heart rate strap and just lie down and let it go. And that is a much better predictor of VO2 max and how trained you are endurance wise. Because I mean, you could have a really high VO2 max, but if you haven't been doing the long runs and you haven't been doing any sort of runs during the week, you're not trained for a marathon. Like that prediction time that based off VO2 max is meaningless because it leaves out all the other variables that make a marathon happen. So relying on one, which is what Garmin does, is inaccurate. And it's stupid. Do better, Garmin. I hate Garmin's. So sorry. I'm sure your Garmin's fine, but don't listen to your Garmin, please. It's not telling you anything good. Sounded what like a cat. It was probably me. I love it. It was Carol Baskin. Carol Baskin is what happened, you guys. That is no doubt what happened to your Garmin. It was Carol Baskin getting there screwing with the numbers. Now I feel guilty about all this, y'all. I love the Tiger King memes. It's the smut my soul needed. I love the jokes about Carol Baskin because I think it's hilarious. But I also think it's really obvious, at least to me, that this woman did not kill her husband. The freaking attorney, her husband's attorney of his legal affairs. If you Google his name, this guy and Don Lewis go all the way back. He says in the documentary, I was told that Don was pushed from a plane. That's all I heard. So I'm sure Don Lewis was scared for his life. I have no doubt of that. But I don't think it was Carol he was scared of. I think people were filling in the blanks. But that's my opinion on it. I think it's I thought it was funny because it was just so obvious there was no way it was true. But now, like, I've seen some of the stuff coming out of her camp. I'm not saying she's a sympathetic, likable character, but there is a huge difference between what she does and what all the other big cat breeders do. She's not a breeder. And they try to make it all even Steven. That's not what Fair and Balanced is, you guys. That's entertainment TV. They threw that poor woman under the bus. But I still think Carol Baskin messed with your Garmin. That's the best explanation I got. Ding, ding, ding. Oh, please. What does that mean, Daniel? You think she did it? Tell me more. Tell me more. So the anaerobic zone for most people, I would think of it differently. So I'm going to draw this out. I wish I had my whiteboard behind me. This is hard. All right. So here we're thinking of, you've got 100% oxygen. So down here in these lower heart rate levels, your body is using nothing but oxygen, protein, and stored fat for fuel. And we all know that as your heart rate rises, it starts using glycogen too. So here it's 100%. Let's say here it's like 80%, 20%. And then up here in this straight up anaerobic zone, you're not using any oxygen and 100% glycogen. So 140 is generally the point where I would expect it to be roughly 60-40, still majority oxygen and a little bit of glucose, a little bit of glycogen, but not enough that your stores are drying up. When you pass this point, it increases exponentially. So it's like something like R4. So it's you're utilizing it. It's increasing at an increasing rate. So when you're down here, you can hang out in this area for a while, but the faster you go, the shorter of time you can expect to hold on to it and still generate power because you're going to run out of glycogen. You've got enough oxygen in your blood in your body because you're taking it in every time you breathe, that this is an infinite resource and this is a very finite resource. So that's how I would think about it. It's like a purely anaerobic zone for most humans starts around 168, 170. Now that's not everybody. There are some people for whom that would start lower, but that's all the more reason to err on the side of conservatism. And all of my general guidelines do precisely that, because you don't want to find out on race day that, your R naught is a 4 And again, these are all calculations you don't need to do, so don't stress out worrying about it. Just know that it's the difference between being able to run for 5 hours at 140 versus 2 hours at 155 versus 5 minutes at 170. We need to have an idea of that before we show up on race day, because people just make stuff up. I feel fine. Okay, but are you going to feel fine in 40 minutes? Are you going to feel fine in 5 hours? Come on. And that's the calculation people don't necessarily do. So there's that. Dan, are you mad at me now? Did you totally leave the chat? You're like, I can't watch this anymore because you don't hate Carol Baskin enough? Come on, dude. Okay. And so yeah, that's how. Oh, you just dialed yours in. That's awesome. I love that. So that is how I feel about the anaerobic zone. That's how I feel about Carol Baskin, and that's how anaerobic stuff works. Just don't pay any attention, and if make a joke out of it to sort of like dial down the importance of any single variable in your mind, because Carol Baskin manipulated it for sure. For sure. Oh, you have cats? You know. Good. I'm glad. Are they big cats though? Because I remember after this, I don't know that I can trust big cat people anymore, Daniel. I can't. All right. It's okay. So, hello. I've been working to transition from rebuild into maintain, and I'm struggling with both the extra effort plus the extra distance. Do you have a suggestion for the best way to modify the gap between the two plans as I continue to build up my strength and endurance? Should I keep the harder efforts but do shorter runs, or stick with the longer runs but just make them easier? Thanks so much. I would say it doesn't really matter. What I recommend and write out in the membership area of the website is, and again, all this is behind the paywall, and you know, it's a lot of words, and that's totally cool. You've probably seen it 100 times and never and overlooked it. When you have time, go back and check it out. But basically what it says is there's not a big leap between week 4 of lane 2 of rebuild and week 1 of maintain. There is a huge leap between week 4, lane 2 of rebuild, and week 4 of maintain. That's huge. So what I generally encourage people to do in their first month in maintain from rebuild is to just get used to the idea of doing week 1 over and over and over for the first month, taking all the breaks when you need them and all the cutbacks when you need them. When it comes to the trade-off between intensity and duration, I am the sort of person who likes a good long jog. I don't know did you hear the screaming earlier? On my mic, pick that up. If I can be away for an hour, my personal sweet spot is 70 to 90 minutes on a weekday run. And I know that's egregiously long for a lot of people, but you haven't met my family. And I'm kidding. I love them all. But that is I like that. I don't find 30-minute runs very satisfying. And I have been aching to get back to a place where I could YOLO a 70 to 90-minute run whenever I wanted, because there for a real long time last year, anything over 80 minutes and my legs were toast. I was done. Like, I have to walk now, and didn't know why, and it made no sense. I could not develop the endurance. It was hormone imbalance. It was luck going on. We've got all that fixed now. So now that I'm back in that place where I'm so happy and I'm so content, hoping I never have to leave again, I tell you all that to tell you this. You're going to have to answer that for yourself. One is not better. It's what you prefer. I don't love the intensity. I never will. So I'm a marathoner. Remember, it's because I'm lazy. I say that very tongue in cheek. I'm the lazy marathoner. I would rather run 50 miles over 8 hours in a week than run hard for 20 minutes 3 times a week. I would choose long every single day. But that's me. If you prefer the intensity, you find the shorter, the easier effort, but longer runs frustrating, then I would rather you err on what makes you most satisfied. Physiologically, I think it would, if I had to guess which one was going to be easier in the long term, it would be not adding the intensity yet. But if that demoralizes you because you feel like you're being punished for not being able to do the intensity yet, then do the intensity and don't worry about it. So it's not about like the right answer and the correct answer are not always the same thing. So the right answer is whatever is going is that, well, the right answer is, don't put the intensity in yet, because it's the intensity that gets you, not the duration. Unless that hurts your feelings and makes the run suck, then it's not the correct answer. And you need to pick the correct answer every single time, if that makes sense. One's not better than the other, or one's only better than the other until you hate it and stop. And that's not what any of us want. So that's how I feel from the woman whose heart rate looked like it was 175 on our last run. Still so mad about that. And that's a hard thing too. Like, I know it's picking up cadence, and there was a day where I was really petulant, like one of my screaming children. They're not normally like this. It's just, there was something in the candy this morning. I'm like, who are you demons? Where did you emerge? Jesus, Carol Baskin made these babies. God. But there was a day when I was just totally petulant. I'm like, well, my puller says my heart rate is 165 no matter what I do, so I'm just going to do what I want. And I did. And it was and my heart rate average at the end of it was 165. That thing didn't move that entire run. It just stayed right there. I was so angry and so frustrated. And that was about a month ago. And that was when I really started paying attention to power and thought, well, power, it's not precisely accurate, but neither is heart rate. And right now, anything is better than cadence when it comes to effort. That's stupid. Cadence tells you nothing. I'd stand by that. So yeah, I've been paying attention to power and having a lot more fun with it, but that doesn't mean that you don't overtrain. And I'm definitely like hitting that point. You can see that in my skin. It's red from all that time in the sun. Yay. So that is what I think about that. Since my running has been hit and miss lately, I seem to have misplaced my easy effort pace. I feel you. Walking is frustrating and my heart rate seems to be all over. I know with mediocre at best sleep and the stress of everything, it's probably normal, but looking for your 2 cents and some encouragement. Okay, so here's my 2 cents. More is not always better. Your central nervous system can only handle so much stimulation. And your central nervous system regulates everything. If you've heard me say this before, I'm not the only person who says this. Remember, I don't get to make up science. I'm just a coach. When it comes to, you can't outrun your adrenal gland. I've heard it said you can't outrun your fork, and that's just disgusting. You can't outrun your adrenal gland. So your adrenal gland helps maintain homeostasis. And it's not like you're working against your body to lose weight. Again, that's just such an ugly way to look at it. And this is all we've ever heard. When it comes to our bodies, when it comes to staying alive, to regulating internal temperature, from, do I need to sweat to cool off? Like, all of that is, it's instinctual, it's autonomic. It's not something you have to think about to make it happen. And there's only so much information that can be transmitted at any point in time throughout your central nervous system. It's like having the fanciest TV possible, having the fanciest Wi-Fi possible, but a TV from 1987. You're not going to be able to get, HD or 4K, anything delivered into that television. As I discovered last week with a whole bunch of people trying to podcast with amazing Wi-Fi and a computer from 1997. And I'm like, well, just get on your phone. Please, just get on your phone. What are you doing? But I tell you that to say this is sort of like your central nervous system. If you overload it, this is why more is not always better. Once it gets overloaded, it just shuts down. You start sort of frying your central nervous system, and you're not going to be doing your body any good. So that's one of the reasons why I sort of like cringe when people talk about doing the 3-hour body pump spin yoga back to back that I used to see all the time in the gym. By the time you've gotten to yoga, your muscles are not receiving anything. If you really went out hard lifting weights in the body pump, then went to the spin classes, though the body pump hadn't just happened, and then you go to yoga to sort of calm it all down, it doesn't work that way. Your body's already screaming so loudly, all it wants you to do is lie down and be still, so the messages kind of stop coming at you. It's like having 4 kids yelling at you simultaneously. You don't hear what anyone says. No matter how many times you say that, the screaming doesn't stop. And that's effectively what's been going on with a lot of people and their bodies before they start training with me. So if the message that you're getting is my body doesn't ready to do this right now, because your body does not differentiate, it's all one central nervous system. It does not differentiate between positive stress of being really excited and negative stress of being in the middle of a global pandemic. If you've ever read much about bipolar 2 disorder, it's because it's like two sides of the same coin, and they're with no ability to sort of regulate in between. It's one and the same. Whole lot of stress, happy, whole lot of stress, not happy. And being able to regulate in between the two is, it's important part of executive function, but not having it is not less than, but that's one of the reasons why it exists. It's because these two, it's not like we're on opposite sides of the world and it's really hard to travel. It's that they're basically the same place in your mind. So I tell you all of that to be like, look for the happy things. Look for the good. Look for the grounding, the things that, like counting the wins. No matter how crappy your situation is, it's not like I cringe when people talk about a gratitude practice, because it's just sort of like makes you feel like I'm so ungrateful. It's just it's a bad cue that sends my brain down a hole. But rather, in a moment where everything sucks, I have to be like, okay, what do I have to work with? And count 2 or 3 things that make me really happy, like earrings. Again, vapid, I don't care. My earrings make me happy. Or I don't know. I'm those sparkly pair of tennis shoes that I put on when I'm in a really bad mood. I love those tennis shoes. They're gorgeous. But just something that silly that distracts my brain and makes me smile and makes me happy, like a Hershey Kiss and an orange Starburst Mocha Valencia in my mouth. Amazing. My brain sort of stops what it's doing, but for that one moment of just like, oh, that tastes so good. So don't judge the thing that makes you happy. Come back to it over and over again. Yeah, you know what? Harder right now, if your heart rate's all over the place and you're not sleeping much at night, are you getting all maximum training benefits? No. But who cares? I would argue if that's all you're thinking about, then we're looking at this incorrectly. Running right now, getting out of the house, moving is our self-care. It's how we get out of the self-quarantine. It's how we get away from the people who we love, but are now spending more time with than we've probably ever had to before, entertaining them in ways that have never been our responsibility in the past, while still responsible for all of the same functions at work, to our spouse, to the community, and to the kids' school, the PTSA, than we've always had. It's a lot. It's a lot. So when you go out there, I'm not saying give up on all your hopes and dreams, but rather remember that when you're out there, don't judge yourself for, I went for a jog and my heart rate was, my pace was a 15-minute mile and my heart rate was at 165. So I walked. All right. Did the 165 hurt? If it hurt and it was too much and you couldn't handle seeing it and you were struggling to breathe, cool, walk. Convert it into a walk. Go on a really aggressive Pokemon walk. Download Pokemon Go. That game is magic, y'all. My son walked 3 miles today. He has never done that before. None of my kids have gone that far with me before. I cannot get over it. He didn't even notice. This is a guy that never wants to do anything. Find a way to make being out there fun. Pokemon Go does it for us. I know I don't like walking. I did it for 3.5 miles with my kid because Pokemon Go is fun. Right? So find some way to remember what it's all about. It's not about the training benefits. It's about getting my kid out of the house. It's about me. Again, I'm still a little overtrained, definitely not needing to run today. Getting out and having some movement so that I'm not rougher on this guy than he deserves. And that could have happened at a couple points today because it was a really stressful morning with all the screaming. So that start there. What's it for? What am I here to get? And as long as you're moving, you're winning. As long as you're listening to your body, you're winning. As long as you're not trying to force something to happen, you're not wasting energy, because once your adrenal gland is totally overflooded and overloaded, those messages aren't going anywhere and you're not building muscle. It's a road to nowhere. Those impulses are not being translated. It's one of the reasons why last year, despite all the work that I was doing, I really wasn't developing power and I wasn't getting stronger. My whole body, my whole system was just collapsed and overloaded. And most of ours are right now in this pandemic before we even get out of bed. So this is why the reasons it sounds so hokey, but that everyone talks about meditation and self-care. I'm like, no, you need an exit strategy throughout the day. I used to smoke And I loved smoking. I miss it. It was the most socially acceptable way to get out of any conversation I didn't want to be in, to take a break from the dinner conversation, to walk away from my desk. No one ever questioned it, like, oh, she's a smoker. If I said I need to go to the bathroom, it'd be like, well, you're gone a really long time. There's nothing has ever replaced smoking in my life as that escape hatch. And I'm much more of an introvert than people think. So think about, that's what self-care needs to be. It needs to be about getting away from all the things that are causing the stress and finding time that isn't expected to be filled with productivity. I hate the hustle culture. I hate productivity culture. If you're getting out there and there's no training benefit to what you've done, who cares? That doesn't mean your time was wasted. Final note, if you go back and listen to the podcast that I did with Alex Lanton, I think it was back in February, I openly made fun of him because we did a podcast together several years ago where someone asked a question about the infrared sauna, and he did not yet have children and was like, there's no somebody, and his answer was, well, there's no scientific evidence that the infrared sauna does anything for the body. I'm like, dude, your wife's pregnant. We're going to revisit this question in 3 years when you have got a 3-year-old, and you can tell me if there's any benefit to hiding naked in a wooden box down the street for an hour twice a week. It's heaven. Sure enough, he's changed his position. There's no evidence to back it up, but boy, it's great. So sometimes you don't really need science to tell you that the thing you're doing is worth doing. If it feels good, sometimes it's okay to do it. So yeah, is a warm-up or a stretching routine going to give you performance benefits? Probably not, but it's going to keep you here longer. That's not why we warm up. Is infrared sauna going to make you run faster? No, but it might give you an hour of relaxation that wouldn't happen at home, because if you were going to be at home, you'd be momming or doing things on a to-do list or making snacks because they somehow never stop eating anything. And oh my God, somebody always needs a snack as soon as I sit down. Mom, I'm hungry. I have enough bottle of water. You're tall enough to reach it yourself. Go it. So clearly it's been a week, y'all. But I tell you all of this to circle it back to, what do you need to get? Is it really trained right now? Or is it a bit of space, bit of motion? Maybe you just want to walk down the street, hide behind a net gator. You can buy lovely ones in our store at fitnessprotection.com and cry. I've done it. I've done it recently. Because I don't want to cry in front of my kids or make my husband feel helpless and responsible for my emotions, because when I crack, everybody cracks. And if that's who you are too, great. All the more reason to get out of the house and do for a run. And none of this has anything to do with training, but has everything to do with the long haul. Here's my final note on that. There are finite games and infinite games. And I'm going to forget Farnham Street. It was the Farnham Street weekly mail out 3 weeks ago, I think. But if you Google Farnham, Farnam Street, infinite games, there was an article about finite games and infinite games, and how when you're playing a finite game, once it's over, now what? Sort of like an Olympian. You work your whole life, you train, you have the Olympics are done. Now what? Do you still do the thing? What do you move towards? That's a game with an end. That's a finite game. Infinite games are the ones that we expect to be playing the rest of our life. Everything I do that I engage in, I'm playing a long game, especially when it comes to running, especially when it comes to my family and my children. And that is it alters the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis. I'm not trying to win in that moment or beat other people. I'm trying to stay in the game, in the infinite game, for as long as I possibly can. That to me is winning. And according to Farnham Street, there you go. Thank you, Susan, for finding it. And according to Farnham Street, if you playing an infinite game is more likely to lead to long-term satisfaction and happiness, because it's rooted in here. It's something to move towards, not something that you're going to be struggling for, that will never quite be worth it and leave a big gaping hole when the game is over. It's a preferred way, according to science, of going about things. And luckily, it just happens to be the way that I do things. And that's my gift to you, trying to help everyone adjust their mindset to see running and movement and self-care and a moment of as an ejector, an exit strategy from a situation or from a moment, and make it so that you can play the infinite game. Needing a break doesn't make you weak. Not taking a break when you need a break and wanting the game to end, that's just settling yourself short. It sounds like you're doing amazing things. It really sounds like you're doing well. There's nothing here. I get that walking is frustrating. I really do. But let's find a way to make walking fun. Let's find a way to maybe sleep a little bit more. If your heart rate's all over the place, again, I can't say this enough. Lexapro was life-changing for me because it was what made my central nervous system stop not working. But it took it from like buzzing up here to where it needed to be, and then everything else fell into place, including my muscular response. Runs feel good now. Lifting weights, I can feel my muscles doing things. I had not been receiving these signals for the better part of a year. Remember, I've said in the past, every time my foot strikes the ground, there's something about that slap that makes me really, really happy. And that's one of the reasons why I love running. I hadn't felt that. I hadn't felt that in forever. Within 3 days of taking Lexapro, I could feel things that I hadn't been feeling in months. If you don't have if you don't have a therapist, if you don't have someone on your team assisting you with your mental health, get one. Get one, please. If you have access, do it. If you don't say, I'm not going to do this because everyone doesn't have access. You can't worry about everybody else. That's a sign right there that you need to get in there and get some help, because that's the wrong way to look at things. Depriving yourself does not create access for someone else. You want to create access for others, great, do that, but don't deprive yourself of something that you already do have access to. So mediocre at best sleep, Lexapro's help my sleep. All kinds of things to help my sleep. There's a lot going on right now. Most of it's out of your control. But if you are unable to relax or meditate or bring yourself down on your own, God, I love Lexapro. I still have feelings. I still have ADHD. I'm still very much MK, but I'm an MK who sleeps, an MK who runs, an MK who feels good, an MK who only needs a minute or two to go to the bathroom, hide with earphones on, and ignore the screaming, instead of the MK who's like, so up here, and my run didn't work, and this didn't feel good, and I didn't have me time today, and bah! So thank God I discovered Lexapro before all this started. It would have been bad for everyone. There's nothing wrong with medication. If you're asking me for advice or to answer a question, then you must be thinking I have some sort of an answer. And I'm not saying that this is the right answer for you, because I am not your doctor. But any PCP, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lufler, but any PCP can prescribe Lexapro. It's not a protected category. Most PCPs can also assign SSRIs. And there are lots of really good ones out there. These are not the antidepressants of Prozac Nation in 1996 that would make your brainwaves stop moving and make you stop feeling things and make you gain tons of weight. I haven't gained any weight on this. There's no reason not to take them, again, if you have access, correct. Okay, so here that is. I'm going to put that up here. Here it is, correct. So again, I'm not saying specifically go get it, but why not ask about it? It can't hurt. This is a stressful time. You're not weak. Don't make it about you. This sucks. I would like to have a little something else supporting me until all of this ends. There are very few of these drugs that a therapist or a doctor would expect you to be on for the rest of your life. The vast majority, it's expected that you would take for 6 months or less until everything regulates, and then you won't need it anymore. This is all new stuff. We are all collectively experiencing trauma, whether you're on the front lines, worried about bringing it into your home. Like I assume, Dr. Lufler, thank you for all you do, by the way, and all the other HCPs are, to the people, the small business owners who have lost everything and are responsible for payroll that they can't make anymore. Everyone right now is going through something really big. And if we weren't a Prozac Nation back in 1996, I hated the way that was all presented. We are going to be one in a while. So why not? It doesn't make you less than asking for a little something to prop you up. And yes, the things that are overprescribed in this country are not these. This is not the crisis. This does not lead to, this is not Lexapro, Wellbutrin, Celexa. None of these are gateway drugs that lead to opioids. I gave birth a year ago. I had surgery the last summer and they didn't want to give me anything stronger than Tylenol. wanted to send me home. I was like, hell no, I'm hurting. I'm staying right here. Ugh, it was awful. So again, I tell you that to tell you this, the sort of things that you have to be worried about, you're less likely to get now. So if you do have access, talk to your PCP, see what your options are. It's a game changer. It was a game changer for me. It's a game changer for other members of my family. I mean, ask. Why not? Because my runs feel good again. Did I say that enough? I accidentally ran 51 miles last week, and it's not because I'm superhuman now. It's because I'm getting what I want out of my motion. Right now, it sounds like you're not. I want you to be. I will, until you get there, I will be here with you. That's what it means to be coached and loved and winning at life. Any PCP, doc, MPPA can prescribe if she's comfortable treating. There are many pharmacotherapy options. Call your doc. We can help do that. That's what docs are for. Docs are showing up every day. We've got so many doctors in this program, and you're going to be hearing 3 of them soon on the Running Life podcast. If you don't listen now, subscribe in Apple Podcasts, CastBox, or your favorite podcast player. We're going to be having a little chat about, well, how to approach your running and how to worry, what to worry about, and do we really need to run in a mask? Not just with COVID, but how to not make stupid, horrifyingly bad decisions in the short term. And really, what is a horrifying decision anyway? It's not asking for a little bit of help, and that doesn't make you weak either. So not utilizing these doctors on the front lines. You're not taking something away from somebody else. They are here to help, and you are the problems that they can help with and the problem that they would like to solve. Again, correct me if I'm wrong there, but wouldn't you rather have like a whole day full of people who, you know, are more or less okay and just need a little extra pro than people who need way more than that and actually need to come in and be seen? I'm guessing, even though I know telehealth is complicated and technology is difficult, I know what I would pick. But not to put words in your mouth, I just wanted to put a smile on your face. Y'all are coached. You are loved. Thank you once again for showing up. Remember that Build is going to be opening up on May the 1st. We're going to be sending emails about that really soon. I just finished the first round of ad copy. Yay. It's very exciting. So Bill, tell your friends if you know anyone that has decided that they want to pick up a running habit right now and would like to do so in a way that is coached and loved so they can play an infinite game of winning at life and taking care of their health. Let them know. Send them to us. We're going to be opening for registration in the next in the next 10 days. What day is today? Oh my God, no, that's not true. Next 15 days, we're going to be opening it up. It's all going to happen very quickly, but we are ready to go. Our sponsored athlete, Nakia Young, is going to be leading the program. And who doesn't want to spend a little more time talking to Nakia? Everybody wants to spend a little more time talking to Nakia because she is amazeballs and I love her. Oh my God, and you're going to love her too. Don't forget to check out our store and get our social distancing FPP neck gaiter. If wearing covering your face in public might have some negative consequences for you, check out the shirt that says "This is what a runner looks like." That paired with your face with the neck gaiter should be hopefully enough to keep certain people away from you and asking too many questions. We've made it bright and as loud and obnoxious as possible because sometimes that's just what you got to do to keep people away from you, right? And that's what we want right now. Go get whatever it is you need to get and enjoy your week. Yay! You'll take it all. That's all you do now. I love that, Andrea. Thank you, Dr. Lufler. And thank you, Daniel. I'm about to go finish. This is why I've been in a bad mood all day, y'all. All I wanted to do, I'm like, here's some chocolate. Let mama watch the final episode of Tiger King that just dropped. No, I haven't gotten. I want to see what's going on with Saf. So I'm headed to do that now. I'm going to go wash a few things. Turn on some Tiger King. Yay. See y'all next week. Or tomorrow in quarantine.